Now, Uganda's constitutional court has rejected an attempt to overturn its controversial Anti-Homosexuality Act. The law is one of the toughest in the world aimed at LGBTQ individuals. It imposes penalties of up to life in prison for consensual same-sex relations and the death penalty for so-called aggravated homosexuality. The legislation was challenged by two legal professors who argued that it violated fundamental human rights guaranteed by the country's constitution. A lawyer for the petitioners spoke to the press after the ruling.
The court today decided that it is legal and lawful to discriminate against LGBTI people. The court today decided that it is legal to exclude the LGBTI community from participating in the affairs of their country, simply on the basis of public sentiments and alleged cultural values. I think it's sad that the court could play to public sentiments and not apply the law. To that extent, I think
Edward Mutebi is a Ugandan LGBTQ activist who has fled here to Germany. Welcome to the studio, Edward. Let's start with your reaction to today's ruling from the Constitutional Court.
Thank you so much for the invite. My reaction to the ruling, the Constitutional Court ruling today, is of course saddening. It's unfortunate to imagine that Ugandans who went to court to seek solace, to seek the interpretation of the Anti-Homosexuality Act, which we found, because I'm also a petitioner in this petition, we found that the law was dehumanizing. We found that the law was against the fundamental rights that every Ugandan is supposed to enjoy. So we going to court, we thought that the court is going to interpret this law and find it just the way we found it to be unconstitutional, dehumanizing, and we were just, of course, definitely surprised and shocked to see that the judges, instead of interpreting the law, they instead gave a judgment basing on their own feelings. They are not really basing on reason, but they gave us a ruling which is very, very, in my view, unconstitutional. And
I mean, it was interesting that they said that parts of this Anti-Homosexuality Act, parts of it were unconstitutional, but they weren't minded to strike the whole thing down.
Yes, they say that part of the act are unconstitutional, but in my view, how can one part of your body be sick and you don't feel like the entire body is sick? So if they can find part of the act to be unconstitutional, it simply means that the entire act is unconstitutional. So the way they have selected a few articles and sections of this act and annulling them, this for me, I call it whitewashing. They were whitewashing just a few lines which they think concerns the general public, because when you look at these articles that have been removed or that they concede to be non-constitutional, these are acts, these are sections which concerns the people who are not the heterosexual community. So they are basically like protecting the heterosexual community and again further isolating and putting the LGBTQ community in a corner.
Right.
So, yeah.
Listen, help us to understand what prompted this legislation, because from outside of Uganda, it looks like it suddenly appeared out of nowhere last March, I think it was, last year. And suddenly you have this government that suddenly wants to demonise and persecute a section of society. Where did that come from?
That's that's a question everyone is wondering, but we know the answer. The government of Uganda has always used the LGBTQ community as scapegoat. When you look at the time when this law was tabled in Parliament, discussed and passed, there were so many things which were happening in the country. There were a lot of mismanagement of funds in government. There was a lot of corruption. There was this and that. And the government definitely needed to find something to disrupt or to distract the general community's minds and thoughts from the main points and the main focus of the country, because there are so many problems right now in Uganda.
Right.
There is poverty, people are dropping out of school, there is anger, there is so many things, embezzlement and corruption. So homosexuality, seriously, is not a big problem.
It's not
but
the thing,
you can
right.
just imagine they are scapegoating LGBTQ people because that's the only thing now they have to hold to the people of Uganda.
And so this law now stands, and so we see within it the threat of life imprisonment or even the death penalty for same-sex acts. Do you expect those penalties to actually be used?
We have a government which you cannot, undermine. If the law stands and if the law says that there is a death penalty for same-sex relationship, don't be shocked to have someone aligned for those charges and sentenced to death. The government is very cruel. We know that. I will not hide this. We are having a very cruel government. I sometimes hate to go political when I'm having such conversations, but there is no way you can separate politics with the current situation. They are using the LGBTQ people as political scapegoats. They are using the LGBTQ people as the chess pawns in their games of politics, which is very absurd because this affects the very grassroots person at the ground. It doesn't affect those politicians who have money. If they pass these laws and then the international community says we are going to stop funding health services, it's not the MPs who are going to suffer, it's the people down who are going to suffer. If they cut funding and they stop funding the roads, for them they drive very expensive cars. They don't feel the pinch of the international community withdrawing this money.
Okay.
So it's so political, you know?
You talked about this government being cruel, and you are here in Germany now because you fled. What was it that made you think, well, I have to get out of Uganda now?
I mean, when I was still in Uganda, as an activist and as a founder of a human rights LGBT organization, I was exposed to so many brutal attacks, including arrests, including, several abuses. Among them was when I was coming from a club with a friend and we were attacked by a group of men, beaten to a point that I blacked out. And of course, I just woke up when I was in my room being nursed by my friends. From this point on, I realized that my life was very, very at risk in Uganda, and I decided to leave Uganda and come to Germany to seek asylum because I believed that I cannot fight when I'm dead. I can fight when I'm alive. Right now, I can sit on this TV and speak for the voicelesses in Uganda, for people who cannot be in the studio to speak, just because I'm alive. If I had died in Uganda, that wouldn't be possible. So that's the reason why I left the country. But whatever happened to me and whatever, made me leave Uganda is still happening in the country, even worse. People are being killed, people have been arrested, people have been molested, people have been undressed in front of cameras, people have been examined like forced anal examination, people are being tortured just because of their sexuality. So that's the reason why I left the country. But very sadly, I'm here witnessing what made me leave the country happening to the people back home. And sometimes I feel like weeping, I feel like crying, I feel like I don't know what to do because it's very sad, very sad.
Thank you so much for outlining that so clearly and passionately for us. Ugandan LGBTQ activist Edward Mutebi, thank you.
Thank you too.